everyone and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I am sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And I'll be knitting today finally. And welcome to as you can see, the second part of our topic for a traditional Ukrainian jewellery, overall jewellery. In the first part we talked about jewellery starting from Kievan Rus up to the late 18th century, and so today we will continue with the topic beginning with the late 18th century, 19th century, and a bit of early 20th century, even though we will be mostly focusing on 19th century. With photos this time it will be way better. There's way more examples, like photo examples of what I'll be talking about, so I will show you that. With resources, again, nothing, but in this video there will be a lot of photos, so you will be able, to understand what I'm talking about. I'm knitting myself a sweater like that, and without further ado, let's get into our topic today. I divided this video by materials because there were a lot of materials used for the jewelry as well in these periods of time, and we will start with some natural materials as it became also very popular at some point. So during this period of time, late 18th, 19th century, there was a lot of jewelry made from affordable and inexpensive materials, as well as from these natural materials. A large number of jewelry of this period were made by young girls and women themselves at home, and jewelry from affordable natural materials was used by almost every Ukrainian girl in her outfit, almost in every single region. Most of such jewelry did not have a great material value though, and since ancient times plants have been popular among girls, some wildflowers or garden flowers, and they were fixed in the hair, stuck under the ribbon of a headband, in a braid, and etc. And this was not always done only on holidays. On weekends, like on weekdays, girls also could have decorated their hair with some flowers. An extremely popular thing and a very big part of our national costumes now at this point became wreath. I hope I pronounced this correctly. So this thing on your head. So these wreaths, they were woven from flowers. So in such wreaths, these flowers, they were arranged in a certain order. So large in size and bright in color, they were placed at a certain distance from each other, and smaller and less bright ones were woven in between them. Large ones, for example, mallows, some dahlias, some poppies also, and small ones such as daisies, cornflowers, periwinkles, and etc. Also, just green leaves could be woven in the wreath, also to add some, decorativeness and some composition. Everywhere in Ukraine, colored silk ribbons were added to wreath, which gave even greater weight to such a head decoration. Wreaths were also important for various divination rituals in our culture, and they were endowed with some magical meaning and used as amulets as well. So more complex were wedding wreaths. They were made of several wreaths of the same or different colors, placed in such like tiers, one above another, and in different regions such wreaths were often decorated with additional elements. So for example, in Lemko and Boyko regions, these wreaths were decorated with some old tassels. In left bank Ukraine, you could sometimes find that they were decorated with just foil. In Hutsul region, it's also western. This is western part. Lemko and Boyko, it's western part. It's like almost it's like in a border with Poland. Left bank Ukraine, it's left part of Ukraine from Dnipro River, so it's Kharkivshchina, basically it's where war is, the front line is going on now. And Hutsul region is the same. It's also part of Carpathian Mountains, near Carpathian Mountains, but more more to the east again. But those are western regions, and in Hutsuls you can see beads and some metal bells also added to those wreaths. Plants were used also to make necklaces. Men as well actually wore such necklaces. Necklaces were made from some rose hips, some peas, various nuts, and etc. And plants of various shapes were used to create a more interesting ornamental composition, as we can say, because they could be strung on a thread together with various metal pendants also. And teenage girls made necklaces from vine branches, which they also decorated with various beads, and they could even paint them in different colors. In addition to the function of decoration, such a thing could have been used as a toy for smaller children. Woolen threads was extremely popular, and it was a material used throughout Ukraine. The threads were painted in various colors, and this was what attracted girls. Some hair ornament were woven from such threads, which were then woven into their like hairstyle that they were doing. And different regions obviously had their own peculiarities. In the Hutzul region and Pokutya region, again, this is more western part of Ukraine, strands of wool were tied at the back of the head, which were previously carefully combed to give them more volume. And such strands covered the neck and fell down at the back, also serving as a back decoration. Sometimes they were also complemented with some ribbons. In the central regions of Ukraine, woolen threads were used to make flowers in the form of such fluffy, voluminous pompons of, again, different bright colors, which were used for wreaths. And often there were necklaces made of shells. They were sewn on thread to a short distance from each other. In addition to the function of a necklace, such threads with shells could be woven into the hair as well. And the shells could be, they could have been from river or imported, that is sea or even ocean shells. And this type of decoration was, well, interestingly, common mostly in Hutzul region again. So again, western part of Ukraine, that we don't have access to the sea there. So it's pretty interesting that those regions that are near the sea, or such as Odessa region, for example, that was not a, well, they had those things, but it was not a super common stuff for them. In many also regions, like areas of Ukraine during this period of time, decorations made of feathers of different domestic birds were popular. So large drake feathers were used as a decoration for the temple, tucking bunches of such feathers under a scarf, or as a decoration for the forehead. Well, scarves are also were mostly a head cover. And as for the decoration of a forehead, like in this case, the feathers were tucked about the forehead in a row, like feather next to feather, and thus creating this, we can say like this open work frame. And this was especially often done by girls in the Kharkiv region. In the Kiev region, drake feathers were used in wreaths, arranged so that they fell onto the forehead from under the wreath. Small chicken feathers were also used. They're softer and they're fluffier, and they were often dyed green actually, and woven into wreaths of flowers. In Podila, again western region, western part, goose feathers were used for this as well, or mostly. And this is interesting that it's not just our Ukrainian tradition, obviously just overall Eastern European things. So we are finding some of the examples like this also in Albanian culture and also in Serbian culture. Well, not just these two, but it's just what comes to my mind first. Next we will get to, well, colored stones and glass also. First of all, necklaces were made from these materials. A significant part of these products was imported from other countries and sold in Ukraine in a ready-made assembled form. But you could also buy some corals and beads separately, just piece by piece or by weight, from which girls then and women would assemble the desired product at home. So corals was brought to Ukraine primarily from Italy and France, and so they were from the of this like bright red, this red-orange color, sometimes even grayish pink. By shape also, corals are divided into three types. The first one is cylindrical, second one is round and oval, and third is segments of coral branches. All of these three shapes of corals, they could have been combined with one another to create a better composition, but mostly they were trying to divide them. It could also have been many strands or just only one strand, and it all depended on the walls of the family. And collar branch necklaces are actually very rare, and they rarely can be found in our museums. In some of the regions, they were adding at the back of this strand, my god, some colored silk ribbons. That was mostly in the western regions. In central regions they were adding some colored threads again, just to make your necklace more interesting, and plus they were using this to tie this necklace behind. So such coral necklaces, they were expensive and they indicated the social status of the owner. Women were proud of their coral necklaces. The bright red color was most valued. Still, this tradition continues. The red color occupies just overall a significant symbolic place in a lot of cultures around the world. In our case, this was no exception. The red color was endowed with magical protective meaning. In addition, it was believed that red and pink coral had some healing properties. And in archival data from 18th century, actually, there is a mention of black coral, some black coral necklaces among the property of the Cossack foremen. However, black coral was probably not popular because we currently have no examples of such necklaces in any museum collection. In the middle Dnieper region, there was also a tradition of stringing metal hollow beads that what were called rify, between corals. So they were specifically made for this purpose by local goldsmiths, and those rifts were made larger than corals and had various shapes and ornaments on them as well. So in the second half of the 18th century, there was an even greater economic decline for, not very rich townspeople and peasants. So therefore, imitations of coral began to be made from materials such as glass, such as smalt, but smalt in our case it's just this colored, opaque glass in the form of small cubes or plates, and also porcelain. Apart to the material from which the so-called coral was made, the principle of laying the necklace remained unchanged. Thus, the largest beads was in the middle, smaller one on the side. But such necklaces, they certainly did not look like real corals. Amber continues to be one of the most popular materials among Ukrainian women, and in Ukraine, amber has long been found in Volyn, in Zhytomyr region. I mentioned them in the previous video, but it was also found in the Carpathian region, Dnieper, Ukraine, and etc. Ukrainian amber is quite actually colorful and high quality, and it can be from rich dark color to this whitish yellowish color, and in terms of transparency it can also be completely transparent or cloudy. The most common were those round, slightly flattened beads, and unlike coral necklaces, amber necklaces usually consisted of only one strand. The necklace was arranged according to the principles, kind of smaller elements at the edges to largest one in the middle and the largest one in the center. Amber in folk tradition was also perceived as a healing stone and amulet even. Women believed that amber not only beautifully shades the face but also makes it mate, clean and healthy. In the second half of the 19th and early 20th century, elongated necklaces made of some opaque this yellow glass beads as an imitation of amber became widespread throughout Ukraine, as a more cheap version of these amber necklaces. Pearls in this period were less common than in previous periods, so from the second half of the 19th century, pearls began to be increasingly replaced by the glass imitations as well, which were brought first of all from Vienna and Italy also, and during this period they were mostly common in Podillia and Hutul region and Bukovina, again western regions of Ukraine. Glass beads were the most picturesque decoration of this period. So they differed in technological features, in shapes and colors, decor, and etc. The biggest part of them, they were imported from Italy, from Murano actually, and were most popular in Hutul, again region, Pokutya and Bukovina. So such painted beads in our traditions, they're called paterki, or like painted paterki, like мальовані paterki, it will be in Ukrainian. They were also usually made in several batches, and beads of the same colors were placed in one row or several different ones alternated. Often the painting on the beads resemble mosaics actually, and each bead was made individually, and accordingly they were rarely made identical to each other. In the Middle Dnieper region, beads could be single or soldered together in 2 or 3 pieces. So glass beads were monochromatic here mostly, especially simple white and black beads were popular, but some examples of blue and pink or just transparent ones are also found. Beads of this ordinary like white milkish color or transparent glass beads were worn as an independent item by women in women in mourning. My god, what is this word? Dictionary says to me it's mourning, something like this, so whatever. So those who lost their husbands and they were crying after them, that's what I mean. Yeah. And also women were wearing this type of necklaces during some religious fasting. So by the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, the Ukrainian folk women's costume included a necklace made of blown glass, like Christmas tree ornaments in bright luminescent colors. A specific technology determined the lightness and shimmer of such necklaces. So women were buying them individually or and then they were arranging them in necessary order according to the traditional shim, larger in the middle, smaller on the sides. It is characteristic that this necklace was rarely combined with other chest jewelry, and traditional metal components were not hung on them as well, so they were not adding any coins, any crosses, any bells, and etc. In many regions, the fashion for such necklaces came out already at the beginning of the 20th century, interestingly. Beaded jewelry was an extremely big part of our chest and neck ornament, but I have a whole video about this, so I will not stop here. If you're interested, you can watch it. An important part of our jewelry is metal jewelry. So metal jewelry of this 18th, 19th century included a very wide range of different types of jewelry. So these were those dukachi that we talked in previous video. Zgardy, we'll explain what is this. Shelesty, necklaces with coins, with some rings, some buckles, earrings, crosses, and etc. Such a wide range of jewelry was associated with the development of Ukrainian folk goldsmithing. At the end of 18th, beginning of the 19th century, wealthy segments of the population began to more clearly give a preference to Western European aesthetics and fashion, thereby leaving no more room for folk jewelry. The folk goldsmiths gradually lost their wealthy clientele and began to work mostly for villagers. And the demands of wealthy people began to be satisfied by those large jewelry enterprises that were able to follow the European fashion, and also there were a lot of jewelry imports. In the second half of the 18th and early 19th century, folk goldsmithing was constantly oppressed by the rapidly developing semi-factory and factory production of women's jewelry. And in Central and Eastern regions, competition was also created by cheap Russian production that were also imported to Ukraine. So in this period of time, jewelry was made from various different metals, so gold, silver. It was predominantly in the cities, but sometimes also some jewelry made from copper and bronze. We can find examples of this jewelry. In smaller towns, preference was given to copper and also various alloys such as brass, for example, and etc. Many of the techniques used by craftsmen date back to the ancient Rus, so they were continuing these traditions. And the most common technique was casting of pre-made model. So an impression then was made of this model in clay or in plaster, and then the mold was made. The cast product though needed some finishing, so it was then polished and some pattern was added to the piece. Such things as rings, dukachi, garde, crosses, etc. Those were made using the casting techniques. The stamping technique was still very popular. However, to create a new stamp, it was very expensive. So because of that, the same stamps were used in many parts of the country. Carving also was a thing, and it was done without a stamp, and it was pretty expensive, so Yeah, so those two first techniques, they were not so expensive. From the end of the 18th to the beginning of 20th century, goldsmithing began to decline. This was due to the great competition of factory production and the increasing transition to European clothing styles. Workers' clothing gradually changed from traditional peasant clothing to the so-called urban attire under the influence of working conditions. And for the longest time, folk features in clothing were preserved just in our festive and ceremonial attire. So we will start also with dukachi. We'll continue with this topic because dukachi continued to occupy a central place in the complex of women's jewelry. Medallions were decorated with a variety of subjects, some coins, some medals, and etc. continued to be used as dukachi. A metal bow was often added to on top of this. So by the nature also of the constructive scheme, dukachi are divided into three main types. First one is the simplest in structure, that consists also only of the medallion itself without any additions. And dukachi of this type were worn on an ordinary red ribbon. And interestingly, there's a lot like of these examples from northern part of Chernihiv region. Second is the type that was supplemented with a decorative element in the form of some rosette, of crown, of a heart, and etc. And the third one, this an open work ornamental lattice of oval, elongated, some triangular or round shape with wavy outlines was movably attached to this type with the help of 3 chains or an eyelet. At the beginning of the 20th century, very cheap and poor quality dukachi began to be made, which was associated with an even greater deterioration in the financial situation of Ukrainians. Coin necklaces were popular in Right Bank, Ukraine. These necklaces were made from coins of different diameters in a row, from the smallest to the largest in the center. Again, everything's the same. The coins could sometimes be actually connected with these little chains to prevent them from, covering one another when you were wearing them, when you were like bending or just overall moving. On the left bank, such necklaces were also made in particular in the Poltava and Kharkiv regions. Here the coins were all different sizes, connected with chains and decorated with glass and coral pendants sometimes. Very popular and interesting in composition are necklaces that were mostly popular in Hutzul region, that are called zharde and sheleste. So what is this? Zharde, so they consist still of several rows of pendants in the form of discs or crosses, and these beads, as we can say, which were made in the form of a brass tube or a wire spiral, and separated the pendants from each other. So mostly it's about crosses. I, to be honest, never saw an example with just discs. It's mostly crosses. The modern type of the zharde, they are also made with crosses in the first place. Over time, this type of necklace evolved, which was manifested in a change in the shape of the cross and just plot depicted on these crosses. This evolution was also manifested in the gradual polychromy of necklaces. As colored, beads began to be added to crosses. This could be some glass beads, painted animal beads, those paterki that I showed you earlier, some corals, garnets, and could even be decorated with just ordinary hazelnuts. Sheleste is also an interesting thing. This is a necklace that consists of hollow bells separated from each other by either beads or some cast tubes. In Bukovina also we have such a type of necklace that was very popular, that is called salba. For it they took a canvas on which they sewed fabric, and then on top they sewed coins in a horizontal rows, or some medallions, my god, what is this stress, around also plaques that imitated coins. So it was there was a lot of coins, like starting from like 25, 60, sometimes even more of these coins were sewn on the salva. Such an ornament is also known among other peoples. For example, Bulgarians also have this type of things. And if I remember actually correctly, our Crimean Tatars, they also have something like this. Uh, I have a video about their jewelry actually on my channel, so you can also watch it if you're interested about that. Earrings have survived to our time much less than necklaces, though there's not like a lot of authentic examples. Very popular among women and girls were quite simple earrings that were made in the form of this crescent moon, and probably it comes from the Kiev and Rus tradition when they were doing this also moon earrings that are called lunnici. I showed you some of the examples in previous video. And also common were earrings in the form of rosettes, often with spreading petals and a red bead in the center of this earring. Often craftsmen, they added pendants in the form of a drop, some cross or heart, some amber or coral beads, and etc. Also popular thing was when they were adding like this bunch of these coral beads, for example, that were made in the form of bunch of grapes. I'll show you. So the earrings were dominated by floral motifs in their shapes, and one can often see a kinship with certain shapes of dukachi and bows to them. In the Eastern Carpathian, there were their own varieties of earrings. The most common were earrings that are called kovtki, sereshki kovtki. So sereshka, it's earring in Ukrainian, or there is this, well, in that part they're actually using more the word kulchiki. So these earrings kovtki, they consisted of a wired hook that you were putting in your ear, and pendants in the form of petal-shaped plates with a serrated edge, and they are called lelitki. And so one earring could have had starting with just these 3 lelitki to 8, which were attached to the hook with some wire. There were also another type of earrings which called like earrings with these pendants bovtici. So these are cast pendants of a round shape with paired processes arranged in a cross shape. Lelitki were also actively used in such a headdress as chiltse. We talked about this. And in our previous video, it is the thing that is known since the Kiev and Rus time. Rings continue to be a popular decoration, and in the first half of the 19th century, they were still made mainly by local craftsmen. From the second half, and especially the end of the 19th century, peasants also began to wear factory rings and wedding bands made of gold, some silver, as well as just some white or yellow alloys. The beginning of the 20th century, rings with religious inscriptions were popular, which were made in workshops in monasteries and then sold at fairs. However, in some regions of Ukraine, such as Chernihiv region, Kharkiv region, for example, even in the 1920s, there were still local craftsmen that continued those ancient traditions of making those rings. And some also masters survived in Carpathian mountains, which were more obvious. They were more isolated there. Rings came in various shapes and decorations. Their surface could be just simply smooth or decorated with some elegant floral ornaments with addition of some color inserts, either some animals or some colored stones. In the Carpathians, rings with a flat shield on top, which was decorated with a geometric ornament, were popular. Rings were made coarser and decorated with relief ornaments, sometimes with multicolored inlay as well. The last thing is bracelets, and interestingly enough, bracelets were not a popular thing at all. In our tradition, at this time, they almost completely fell out of use. Well, some individual examples survived in, again, Carpathian Mountains, so just some people from there, they were wearing some type of bracelets, but everywhere around, you will not see actually bracelet in, as a part of our folk costume ensemble at this point. in this time. And well, it's still like this. It's not very popular things, to be honest. I don't even know why. I guess there were, more work done. People were more workloaded starting from this period of time, because we basically were slaves of Russian Empire, and so yeah, it was not very comfortable. I don't know, to wear those bracelets. I don't know why the bracelets did not became a thing also. But well, so we don't really have examples of bracelets from this period of time, except from certainly Carpathian villages. So this is everything that I have for today. This is like this brief, very, very, very brief retelling of what we had in our country. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you found something new for yourself, and I hope you also will be very inspired. I don't know. I really like our jewelry, to be honest. I talked in a previous video about this, that I want to buy myself quite a bit of things, the amber ones, the coral ones, and I mean, it's possible. They are like on sales, you can find them, because a lot of people from villages, those grandmas, and everyone, they are selling a lot of things. They're selling also embroidered skirts, not skirts, shirts, because well, they don't really need them, and that's very sad actually, that a lot of people, especially from that Soviet generation also, they don't see the value in those things anymore. And there's actually a lot of villages in different parts of Ukraine that are, well, basically dead at this point now. No one lives there, but even we can see sometimes, well, people who are going around there and searching for just interesting stuff. They can see that the house was that there's a lot of personal things in the houses left. That's what I'm trying to say. And by those personal things, they can see that the house was left just 50, 60, 70 maybe years ago, but it's already in ruins. It's already, well, no one's interested in that. No one probably knows where the siblings of those people who lived there, where they are, if they survived even those years, or what's going on, because there's, in a lot of these houses, you can find actually some private letters, some photos, and some chests with, those chests are full of embroidered shirts, embroidered towels also, which are also a very big part of our culture. Just a young girl, she needed to sew herself and embroider it up to her wedding, so it was very important. Yeah, and there's just full chests like this that are sitting just in the middle of nowhere, basically, in Ukraine, without any attendance to that, and no one is claiming that, and again, gods know where these people are. So that's very, very sad and unfortunate. Yeah, but sometimes those grandma that are still living there, they're selling those stuff, and they're selling this actually pretty cheaply, and so I think that quite a bit of people are using this. But I mean, that's the thing that that goes on, I think, all over the world, with all the different nations, and well, there's people like this everywhere. But well, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found something new for yourself, something interesting for yourself, and hope you got inspired as well by our beautiful jewelry. And well, I hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.